So today we're going to be ranking the top 10 quarterbacks coming into the NFL 2026 season. Now, before we get into my rankings, I want to also go through my honorable mentions because obviously people are going to get mad that certain QBs are not on the list. And before we get hate comments or anything, if anyone decides to thumbs down my video, which I won't be able to see, but these are my personal rankings. If you guys have your own rankings, put it down in the comments below. And if you disagree with my rankings, feel free to put me in my place or whatever. But here are my honorable mentions. First honorable mention, I got Caleb Williams. Now, Caleb Williams was great last year. Some Bears fans are going to be pissed he's not on this list. But, however, he was clutch many times in the game last year when they were down by 10 plus points in the fourth quarter. But however, he doesn't have a lot of experience. So I know people might get pissed that I say this because another QB is definitely controversial that he's not on this list. But if he can replicate it again in his third season, then he will definitely be in my top 10. So for my next honorable mention, and this one's also another one that's controversial, I got Sam Darnold. Now, Sam Darnold definitely was great last year. He won a Super Bowl in his first year with Seattle. And I'm not just putting him outside the list because I'm a 49ers fan, but to be fair, he did have the best defense in points per game allowed. And he does have a great team around him with JSN and Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet. So while, yes, Sam Darnold was great, he won the Super Bowl with the Seahawks in his first year. The previous season with the Vikings, he was phenomenal. But to be fair, he did have a great team around him. And in my opinion, he's a good quarterback, but it's just that he's not a top 10 QB. And the person that I have at number 10 is going to piss Seahawks fans off. So for my final honorable mention, and this one's also a very controversial one, I got Drake May. Yes, Drake May, the MVP runner-up and a second-year QB who brought his team to the Super Bowl. The guy that led the league in completion percentage. Yes, I definitely leave him just outside the top 10. And I know it's going to piss Patriots fans off. But here's the reason why. It's just that he doesn't have a lot of experience. And I know Patriots fans and even Bears fans are going to say, oh, come on, you just said that. It's unfair. But however, I just think a lot of these QBs that I have above him, all those 10 QBs, I think they're just better and they're more experienced. And I know you guys are going to say I'm biased with my number 10, but I just think that he's least experienced and he did have one of the worst QB performances in the entire 2026 postseason. And he did play the last place schedule. I know Patriots fans get pissed when people say this, but if he can replicate the same thing he did last year and he can play well against first place teams, then he's definitely not only in my top 10, but he's definitely will be in my top 5 in my next season QB rankings. So those are all my honorable mentions. So with that being said, with my number 10, and you're all going to say I'm biased, but I got Brock Purdy. So I'm not going to just leave him out the list, not because I'm a 49er fan and all that, but he is one of the most underrated QBs in the league. And I know he gets disrespected because of how Kyle Shanahan had all that success with his offense and with Jimmy G in the past. And people claim that he's a game manager and all that, and any QB could succeed in the Kyle Shanahan system and all that. But that's just because Kyle Shanahan has a great offense run. But here's the reason why I believe Brock Purdy's a top 10 QB, and he is definitely the most underrated QB in the NFL. He only played 9 games. He had over 2,100 yards passing, a 69.4 completion percentage, 20 touchdowns. However, he did have 10 interceptions in 9 games. So he does have problem with turning the ball over at times. But last year, he showed that he is not a game manager, and that narrative needs to be stopped. Because last year he did not have Deebo Samuel nor Brandon Ayuk, and people are saying that he's only good with the yard after the catch bros. But last year, his weapons are, besides George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey, he has Ricky Pearsall, who's injury prone, Demarcus Robinson, Kendrick Bourne. So yeah, those are all his weapons he had last season, and Jawan Jennings as well. And he was still able to carry the team most of the part. I know in the playoffs, the way the season ended was definitely not great. And I know Seahawks fans are going to spam 41-6 and we won a Super Bowl in your stadium and all that in the comments because I have Brock Purdy higher than Sam Darnold ranked in my list. Why I left Sam Darnold outside the top 10. I have Brock Purdy in the top 10. But I just think that Brock Purdy is one of the most underrated QBs. He literally had a terrible O-line, an entire 49ers defense where half of the players are injured, and he's still able to carry this team. You saw what he did against the Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions in the wild card round. He put his team on his back, led a game-winning drive with a go-ahead touchdown to CMC, which is why I think he's not a game manager. He's a top 10 QB, and he's the most underrated QBs in the NFL. So with my number 9, I got Jordan Love. Jordan Love, now I know a lot of Bears fans are going to get pissed because I left Caleb Williams outside of the top 10. Well, I put Jordan Love higher in the top 10, obviously. And I know Bears fans and Packers fans have been debating about who's the better QB on Twitter, which is obviously like NFC North rivals, so I get it. But the reason why I have Jordan Love on this list is because he's been great since he became the full-time starter. Now, I know in the playoffs, yeah, he doesn't really have that much success. He did have that one surprising playoff win against the Cowboys. That was one of the greatest hate watches during that wildcard weekend. But Jordan Love last year only played 15 games, had over 3,300 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So he definitely limited the interceptions from the last 2 seasons because he had back-to-back 11 interception seasons in 2023 and 2024. So with my number 8, I got Jared Goff. And I think Jared Goff is one of another underrated QBs in my opinion because some people consider him as another game manager. One, because he has a super team around him on offense, and 2, he's not really a mobile type QB. But last year, even though the Lions didn't miss the playoffs, he still had a pretty great season. He had over 4,500 yards passing, 34 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, was second in passing yards behind the former Lion Matthew Stafford, the guy that they traded for him. Oh, look, that sounds kind of funny. But Jared Goff, I think, deserves to be in the top 10 because not just with the Lions, but he had great seasons with the Rams before his 2 down years. And since he joined the Lions, he turned his career around because since 2022 he had 4 straight 4,000 yards passing seasons. And I think Jared Goff next year with the Lions, I think that the Lions are going to have a bounce back year with a new offensive coordinator, and as long as their Lions defense is solid, the Lions are definitely contenders, and I won't be surprised if Jared Goff moves up the list. So for my number 7, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I got Dak Prescott. Now, before anyone gets mad, I do not like Dak Prescott. I'm a Cowboys hater. I hate Dak Prescott, but I still have to give him his thing, even though he's like one of the most hated QBs in the NFL. Last year, he was 3rd in passing yards, finishing with over 4,500 yards passing, 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions in his first season back from injury. The reason why I have him on this list is because throughout his career, he's been a pretty decent QB. Yes, in the playoffs, he's not so great. He always chokes in the playoffs, but I think he definitely still deserves to be on this list because he's shown that in 2023 and 2025, after coming off an injury, he still can be pretty productive. Now, obviously, since 2020, on even-numbered NFL seasons, he gets injured like you see in 2020, 2022, and 2024. We'll see if he can actually break the curse and have back-to-back healthy seasons, or will he continue the even-numbered season injury curse. But I still think Dak Prescott deserves to be in the top 10 QBs, even though he is one of the most hated QBs in the NFL, and a lot of that's because he plays for the Cowboys and his performance in the playoffs. But we'll see if he can break the curse on getting injured on even-numbered season, and can he finally stay healthy back-to-back seasons. So for my number 6, I got Justin Herbert. Now, yes, Justin Herbert, a lot of people say he shouldn't even be that high. Some people do not consider him as a top 10 QB because he doesn't have a playoff win. He's 0-3 in the playoffs, but that's for another type of rankings to talk about. If we're saying top 10 QBs coming into the playoffs, then yeah, he's likely not going to be on that list. But last year, he didn't have his best season. He had over 3,700 yards passing, 26 touchdowns. His interceptions was pretty high with 13. Like, he's usually careful with the football, so that's definitely high for him. And he was the most sacked QB with 54 sacks last season. And he did not have time to throw last year with the O-line was so banged up. And I know he did have that one MVP vote because of how bad his O-line was, and he's still able to play at a productive level. Is pretty good. But throughout his career, he's been a great QB, especially like early in his career when he had Anthony Lynn and Brandon Staley as his head coach, and he's still able to be playing well, like with what he has to work with a terrible defense like before the Jim Harbaugh era is pretty good. But we'll see if he can get his first playoff win next season. Like, I know every season, like, now it's all not about like missing the playoffs and charging. Now it's all about winning a playoff game for Justin Herbert. But we'll see if he can finally get that first playoff win next season. But yeah, he's definitely a top 10 QB. He's like just misses the top 5. So yeah, we'll see if he can make the top 5 next year. If he can get like at least a pretty solid playoff run, then he definitely would be in my top 5. Now we're heading into my top 5, and with my number 5, I got Joe Burrow. Now, Joe Burrow has been injury prone throughout his career. He hasn't made the playoffs since 2022, but Last year, he only played 8 games and he had over 1,800 yards passing, 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, a 5-3 record as a starter. So, like, when he's on the field, he's definitely a great QB. Like, if he's healthy, he's definitely could be considered a top 3 QB. But the problem with him is just he hasn't been healthy the last 3 seasons. He's only played like 1 full season since 2023, which is 2024, where he had 1 full season where he led the league in passing yards. But he's still definitely a top 5 QB. And I think next year, like, I know we say this every year, as long as he's healthy, they're definitely playoff contenders. And the problem with the Bengals is that they never had good O-line play. So the fact that he's still playing pretty good at this level, despite having a bad O-line, is pretty good. Hopefully next year he can actually stay healthy and finally get the Bengals to the playoffs. Obviously, the Bengals got Dexter Lawrence, so that definitely helps their defense because he also never had a great defense for Joe Burrow. So he really has no help on defense too. So hopefully next year he can finally return to the playoffs and stay healthy and play a full season, but he's still a top 5 QB. For my number 4, I got Lamar Jackson. Now, Lamar Jackson last year only played 13 games with over 2,500 yards passing, 21 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He nearly racked up 350 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. So he didn't do that much on the ground last year. He was kind of like banged up, so he couldn't really run that much last year. But I think this year the Ravens should have a bounce back year. We'll see how they do under Jesse Minter as their head coach, but I think Lamar should have a bounce back year as long as he's healthy. And he also does have the best passer rating of all time with a passer rating of 102.2. So he's definitely a great passer too, because a lot of people know him as a rusher because of how he runs a lot and he plays like a dual threat QB. But I think next year the Ravens should have a bounce back year with Lamar as long as he's healthy. I think his rushing yards should be back, and yeah, I think he's definitely still deserves to be a top 5 QB despite also having a down year. For my number 3, I got Patrick Mahomes. Yes, Patrick Mahomes last year obviously had a down year. He only played 14 games before tearing his ACL, but last year he only had 3,500 yards passing, 22 touchdowns, 11 picks. He also led the team in rushing yards last year, but a lot of people have been saying that he hasn't been the same since Matt Nagy took over as the offensive coordinator. Not that he's bad, he just hasn't been dominant. But last year, I know the Chiefs had a down year, but I still think Mahomes is still good. I think next year with Eric Bieniemy back as the OC, I think he's going to return to his 2022 form. I think the Chiefs should be back winning the AFC West. I know everyone's counting them out and saying that the Broncos are winning, but I think next year Mahomes, as long as he's good to go week 1, the Chiefs should be back. I think the Chiefs are going to win the AFC West as long as Mahomes is healthy. And I won't be surprised if he returns to being the number 1 QB on the top 10 QBs list next season. So with my number 2, I got Matthew Stafford. Yes, the reigning MVP. Stafford had his best season so far, and he's doing this at 38 years old with over 4,700 yards passing, 46 passing TDs, and 8 interceptions. And next season, the Rams also have a loaded defense, so they are one of the best teams coming into the NFC. But Stafford, throughout his career, he's shown that he's been great, even not just with the Rams, but with the Lions. And since he joined the Rams, he's been playing MVP level type QB, and I won't be surprised if he wins another one next year at 38, because he's still doing this at 38 years old. Is pretty good. Led the league in passing TDs. So yeah, he's not number 1 because the other guy in front of him is just insane. So that's why I left it at number 2. So finally, with my number 1, I got Josh Allen. Josh Allen last year had over 3,600 yards passing, 25 TDs, 10 picks. He also added over 500 yards on the ground, 14 rushing touchdowns, and he also broke the rushing touchdowns record by a QB in their careers. So yeah, last year, obviously, Josh Allen, no, he did not replicate his MVP 2024 season, but last year, the Bills, their offense he didn't really have a lot of help too besides James Cook, because last year the O-line for the Bills was definitely a down year, and all he had was Khalil Shakir to throw to, who, yes, he's an underrated receiver, but he's not a top 10 receiver. So, and his defense, yes, statistically they have the best passing defense, but their run defense was horrible last year. So considering what he had to work with, he was still playing pretty good is already impressive, which is why I have him at the number 1 QB on the top 10 QBs rankings list. Yes, a lot of people got pissed off on the ESPN rankings that he's number 1 because he doesn't have a Super Bowl ring, but at the same time, playoff wins are not QB stats, they're more of team effort, and a lot of people just don't understand it. But as of right now, coming to the 2026 season, Josh Allen is the best QB. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you guys think this list is great or not? We'll be also doing the top 10 running backs and top 10 wide receivers, and I'll see you guys in the next video.